Chris McConnell. Mark Wemkin.
Roto Bros signal confirmed.
Who wants to talk wide receivers? Everybody wants to talk wide receivers. Welcome into the mind of McConnell. So last show we talked a lot about we were going over my rankings. So I'm doing the whole McConnell's the whole series, the McConnell's 2021 rankings, right? And to preface everything, like we know, like we did running backs last week, right? There were probably some shockers for some of you guys, but we also have to always keep in mind rankings for the most part, they don't really mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, right? Because not all these guys are going to stay healthy. There's going to be some surprises, guys that aren't even ranked. I think I did a top 25 at running back. Guys that aren't even ranked in the top 25 by me or anybody else are going to wind up in the top 15. Like nobody had James Robinson finishing as the RB7 last year, but it happens. Injuries happen, right? So we got to keep that in mind when we talk about these different rankings. So please also keep that in mind tonight, and not only tonight when you're listening to this show, but when you're listening to me and Mark together, when you're listening to any other show. Hopefully you're not cheating on the Roto Bros, are you? That wouldn't be a good idea. But seriously, whenever you see rankings on ESPN or Fox Sports or, Matthew Berry's, right? Like you've got to remember, oh my God, that guy's ranked 27th at running back. This is you got to remember, there's going to be injuries ahead of these guys, right? Things are going to happen. Guys are going to get hurt. Guys are going to get traded. Guys are going to get signed. Like, things are going to happen to shake up the rankings. The rankings really don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's just really all it is a meaningless paper version of an idea where you believe these guys should be ranked to either start the season or finish the season. And as most of you know, my rankings are typically going to be based off where, as of right now, where I would envision these guys finishing. Like, I'm not going to give you a preseason ranking showing you, well, this is where this guy is now. Right? I want to try to forecast the situations that these players are going to be in and give you my opinions on where they're going to be at season's end. Now, of course, you're never going to be 100%. You're probably never going to be close to 80% or 70%. Even me. I know it's crazy, right? Even me. Like, not even I'm right that often. But seriously, like you have to keep that in mind. And of course, like I said, there's different rankings. Some people just do preseason and pre-draft rankings, and they're not going based off where they may finish. Mine are typically based off where I think they're going to finish, because I think it helps people more. It gives you more of a forecast and a projection of where I believe. Because if someone asks for my opinion, they want my opinion. They don't want Matthew Berry's preseason opinion. If they wanted that, they would just go and look up his rankings. Why am I going to build my rankings the same way that Matthew Berry is, and the same way that the guys on Fantasy Pros are? Okay? And the same way that the footballers are. That doesn't help anybody. You're asking for my opinion. I'm going to give you my convictions, and I'm going to give you where I think these guys are going to go and finish based on the situations they're in, what they have done, and all of these other factors. Okay? And again, it doesn't matter what type of rankings you're doing, whether you're doing them like me or doing them like Matthew Berry or whoever. You can't forecast injuries. So that's always going to shake stuff up. That's going to be the biggest thing that really shakes stuff up, right? Okay, so we did running backs last week. So you guys know my running back rankings. If you did not listen to the show for some bizarre reason last week, or you just forgot, I can forgive you. you can check out this episode. You can listen to this episode first, or you can check out the running backs episode first and then come back to this one, because we did running backs first last week. So either way, listen to both episodes. So just like last week, I gave you a top 25 at running back. Well, this week, I'm going to give you a top 30 at wide receiver. Wide receiver is a bit of a big group. You could go all the way down to 75 if you wanted to. We're not going to do that. We're going to stick with the top 30. So we're going to get all the wide receiver ones, all the wide receiver twos, and a couple wide receiver threes, right? So the tiers go by 12s. Okay, so we're going to go all the way to 30. And anybody past 30, we can have discussions on. You guys can tweet at me at Wizard of Roto. You can jump into the Roto Bros Fantasy Lounge by going to patreon.com/RotoBros. You can choose your tier, $2, $5, save 10% on both if you pay annually. And you can jump into the Fantasy Lounge and ask me about guys that I don't cover on this show. And we'll be happy to discuss those guys in the Fantasy Lounge. However, so I'm giving you a top 30 tonight. And again, this is where, and I'm going to give you reasons on pretty much every player why I'm ranking them where I'm ranking them, right? We'll spend more time on some other guys than we will, we'll spend more time on specific guys than we will other ones as well. So let's go ahead and get started here, okay? And originally, by the way, I was going to put tight ends. I think I said on the last show, I was going to put tight ends in with this show, but wide receivers, again, are such a big group. I think I'm going to couple tight ends in with quarterbacks for the next Mind of McConnell episode to sort of cap off the 2021 rankings, at least the first edition of my rankings. So we'll couple tight ends. We'll lump tight ends in with quarterbacks next week. But wide receiver. So let's get started here. Wide receiver 30. And it's interesting that this guy is at wide receiver 30 for me. And I think a lot of you are going to feel like, oh, this is a little low for this guy. This is a little low for this guy, okay? But it's interesting that he's here because Mark and I were just having a discussion on him. Tomorrow we are actually recording our sister pod, our Dynasty pod, Darkly Dreaming Dynasty. We're recording an episode, and he's going to be a featured topic on there. So we're going to dive in a little bit more deeper to this guy. So wide receiver 30 to start this whole thing off, I have DJ Moore. DJ Moore at wide receiver 30 for me. And before you go nuts and say, oh my God, that is egregiously low. Okay. I can understand a little bit of outrage and a little bit of confusion. Let me break it down for you. DJ Moore is a very talented receiver. We all love DJ Moore. We think he's great, right? We think he's phenomenal. But DJ Moore, from a fantasy output perspective, hasn't exactly turned into yet what we were all hoping him to turn into, okay? Now, why is that? Well, he had Teddy Bridgewater as his quarterback. Now he's going to have Sam Darnold, who pretty much, let's be honest, Sam Darnold is still a largely unknown commodity. We don't really know. We're going to find out this year, but we don't really know what we have in Sam Darnold, what the Panthers have in Sam Darnold. We don't know what to expect from him. Was it just Adam Gase and the Jets? Was it the bad offensive line? Was it the lack of quality weapons? It's easy to point to those three things and say, that's why Sam Darnold never turned out. And to be a great quarterback and never truly broke out. He could this year, but this is going to be his only shot, or else he's going to be a career backup. And I lean more toward the latter of him being one of the better career backups, like a Teddy Bridgewater or a Ryan Fitzpatrick, a guy like that for the future. But to me, you look at Sam Darnold, and to me, it's arguable that he's even better than Teddy Bridgewater. So the quarterback upgrade for DJ Moore is not substantial. Robbie Anderson is still there. You added Terrace Marshall, who I don't know if anybody dislikes Terrace Marshall. The guy has got an alpha build, an alpha skill set. To me, he is going to end up in a year or two cementing himself as that alpha receiver for the Panthers over DJ Moore. So Terrace Marshall's there. He has arrived. Dan Arnold, a very physical, athletically gifted tight end who hasn't really been able to sort of spread his wings, so to speak, in the NFL yet, because he's been with Bruce Arians and he's played for Cliff Kingsbury. So he hasn't exactly played for coaches in offenses that are willing to get the tight end involved, regardless of if the tight end is a physical freak of an athlete or not, which Dan Arnold is. And he is a he is a receiving tight end. Now, we don't know how good he is. There's been receiving tight ends before that just, don't pan out. But I think at worst, we could maybe be looking at like a guy like Martellus Bennett. And Martellus Bennett had a few good seasons. Quality tight end one seasons. Now, Dan Arnold probably isn't going to be elite. He's not going to be Darren Waller or Travis Kelce or Kyle Pitts or even TJ Hawkinson. But he could be a fine option in the passing game if they decide to incorporate the tight end, which I think Matt Rule is probably looking to do, which is why you brought him in and had an upgrade over Ian Thomas. So you brought in, you kept Robbie Anderson around, you brought in Dan Arnold, you drafted highly, second round, I believe, Terrace Marshall, and Christian McCaffrey returns. You brought in David Moore. So what this tells me is, number one, why is this a problem for DJ Moore? He does not have a substantial quarterback upgrade. He's got significantly more added. He's got 3 more added bodies in the receiving room with David Moore, Dan Arnold, and Terrace Marshall. And Christian McCaffrey returns, who we already know is a problem in the receiving game. Okay, so last year, DJ Moore finished the season as wide receiver 25. Okay, so he didn't even finish the season as a wide receiver 2. Finished right behind CeeDee Lamb, right ahead of Cooper Kupp. So he didn't even finish the season as in the wide receiver 2 category. He was on the edge there, obviously, one spot away. But he was still a wide receiver 3 if we're being specific. So he had 1,193 yards and only 4 touchdowns. He's had 4 touchdowns his first 2 seasons in the league. So this is a guy that he already does not score touchdowns. So how can we expect, and how can you expect me to rank him highly this year and expect a lot out from him and expect his touchdown numbers to either go up and his receiving yards to stay where they're at or go up, and his targets to either stay where they're at or go up, or all of that to happen together when you didn't have a significant upgrade at quarterback, you're in the same offense, and you have added bodies to compete with in the receiving game? What about that situation tells you that DJ Moore is going to be significantly better than he was last year? Or significantly better than wide receiver 30 right now, which is where I have him? What tells you that? He's a good talent, and he's athletic. Okay, wonderful. But just because he's a good talent and athletic, that doesn't just mean Terrace Marshall and Dan Arnold and David Moore and Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey aren't problems in the receiving game. Right? Like, come on. So that, to me, is one of the biggest reasons why I'm putting DJ Moore at 30. Now, again, we'll dive into him more on the next Darkly Dreaming Dynasty podcast, so look to check that out. But we got to move on. 29, Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool had a pretty good rookie season. Breakout rookie season, I'd say. I think Chase was better than a lot of people, including myself, thought he was going to be. 9 touchdowns, 873 yards. The touchdowns really buoyed his fantasy value a little bit. But everybody's worried about Ben Roethlisberger's arm, and oh my God, they drafted Najee Harris. They're going to be a running football team. Look, I think nobody has been more vocal than me and maybe Mike Taglier of the love we have for Najee Harris and how highly we are willing to draft Najee Harris. He's an RB1. He's going to have so much work. He's going to get an incredible amount of work this year. But what do you do with these receivers? Juju, Deontay, and Chase. Chase, to me, is the one I think I like the most out of them all, just because of his physical skill set and the fact that he is the biggest red zone threat on this team. So I think he could have another season where his touchdowns sort of buoy that fantasy value again. I don't think Chase is going to have a much better season than he did last year. Okay. Obviously, I think it's going to be a little bit worse. He was wide receiver 22 last year. I've got him at wide receiver 29 this year. But I do think it's because they are going to have a much better running game this year. I do think Ben's going to be fine for this season with his elbow, another season removed from surgery and the injury. So I think Ben's going to be fine, but I don't think they're going to be throwing it all over the place like they used to when Antonio Brown was in town. I think they will be a little more run heavy. So I am a little more cautious on this Pittsburgh wide receiving core. I don't think we should be expecting wide receiver 1 or top flight wide receiver 2 numbers from any of the 3 guys. But Chase Claypool is the only one I have ranked in my top 30 right now. Odell Beckham Jr. coming in at 28. Look, they're going to be a run-first football team as well. We know that. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, that offensive line, they don't want it to put the game in Baker's hands, okay, because Baker is prone to mistakes when that is the case. So they want to control the clock and play defense. It's going to be a good football team. They're going to be leading a lot, I believe. Going to be a lot of tight games. Going to be able to control the clock a little bit. So they're going to have to throw a lot. But Odell Beckham is a supreme, elite talent, one of the best talented wide receivers in this league. Regardless of what his fantasy numbers say, he's probably a top 7 overall talent at the position. Still, he's just got to stay on the field. If he stays on the field, I do see him. I think he could have a higher ceiling wide receiver 28, obviously. But I'm playing it safe there because, again, we don't know how he's going to be coming off another year of injuries on a run-first offense. So I am playing it a little more conservative with Odell Beckham, but I do think he could be a very good value in drafts. 27, Kenny Golladay. I think long gone are the top wide receiver 1 season or seasons for Kenny Golladay. I don't think the targets are going to be there like they were. I don't know if the efficiency in the passing game is going to be there like it was with Matthew Stafford. Look, you guys know I love Daniel Jones. I like the guy, but I don't know that he's Matthew Stafford yet. Okay, this is going to be the year we find out how good Daniel Jones is. But I think Kenny Golladay is going to be a better real life addition to this football team than he is a fantasy addition, an addition to your fantasy team. Okay. So I think Kenny Golladay drafting him as your wide receiver 1 is a problem. Your wide receiver 2, obviously, I'm not going to really argue. I've got him at 27. So I think he's got obviously that variance to be wide receiver 20 or something like that down to 27 or so. But he's not a guy that I'm like going after. I'd rather have him as my wide receiver 3. If I can get him there, I'm happy because that's more the range I think he's going to wind up being. Julio Jones at number 26. I know, it's crazy, right? Julio Jones, just a few years ago, we were putting him in the top 5. Like he was like the second receiver off the board, you know? So, look, it's a different offense. Run heavy, Derrick Henry, very efficient running game. But Arthur Smith is gone. Is this passing game going to be as efficient without Arthur Smith? There are going to be some changes, and I don't think this passing offense is going to be as good or as efficient, even with Julio in the fold. I do think that if he can stay healthy, he obviously has a much higher ceiling than this. But Julio always seems to be playing with some sort of injury, right? Fellow Falcons fans know this, okay? And I do think A.J. Brown is going to be still the number one target for Tannehill and for this offense. But I do think that they are going to really cannibalize each other when it comes to targets. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for either one of them. So I can't on a run first offense. I can't. No Arthur Smith. I just can't envision Julio having one last elite season. So yeah, I'm going to play conservative with him, and I'm going to put him in that sort of wide receiver 2 area. Number 25, we got Robert Woods. And I think some people are going to be upset with the Robert Woods ranking. But again, I think you also have to look at who's ahead of them. And when I name some of these names here in a little bit, it's for me, I just can't put him ahead of them, right? I have Cooper Kupp ahead of him. We'll get to him in a minute. But Robert Woods, to me, I like Robert Woods. I think he's a good receiver. Okay, I do think Van Jefferson is going to be incorporated more into the offense. That may not be a good thing for Robert Woods. That may bring him down a tick. Deshaun Jackson, if he can stay on the field, he's going to be a reliable downfield weapon. If he can stay healthy, he will be. And of course, we look at the backfield, Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson. We've talked ad nauseum about those guys. Tyler Higbee's still there. I'm not huge on Higbee myself. I do think Stafford's going to have a really good season, but I think they are going to spread the ball around a lot. And I don't think they're going to really target one of these two guys in Kupp and Woods at a significant rate above everybody else. I think they're going to spread it around pretty evenly. So I don't see a Robert Woods finishing wide receiver 14, borderline wide receiver 1. I don't see that for Kupp either. So wide receiver 25 comes in for Robert Woods. Courtland Sutton comes in at wide receiver 24 for me. I think Courtland Sutton could end up, I do. I think he's good enough, even with Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock at quarterback. I think he's a target hog. Jerry Jeudy, another year in the league, playing across from him. I think Courtland Sutton is an absolute alpha. I think he can be an elite receiver in this league. Coming off of injury, we'll see how he does. But this, to me, Courtland Sutton's got one of the biggest variances, okay, of any receiver in fantasy this year. I mean, he could be a wide receiver 3 at wide receiver 34, or he could legit in the season as wide receiver 4. I really believe that's sort of where Courtland Sutton's variance is. Okay. But I do think this is going to be a more run-heavy team. The quarterbacks aren't great. And again, Mark and I touched on it, a couple shows ago. A lot of these guys have their value hinged on whether or not they get Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson. Imagine if Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson goes to Denver. You think I'm keeping Courtland Sutton at wide receiver 24? Courtland Sutton's going to be a top 10 receiver for me. I mean, that's how much it can change. And that's why his variance is so high this year. It's one of the reasons. But until we get that news of who is exactly going to be that Denver quarterback, I got to look at the situation. Courtland Sutton coming off injury. Don't know what to expect. Jerry Jeudy's there now. He's going to be taking some targets, obviously. Jerry's more of the possession, move the chain sort of receiver. Courtland's going to be, doing more stuff downfield. I think, and I think that could ultimately present a problem for guys like Drew Lock who don't have great downfield accuracy. Teddy Bridgewater, okay, who's not known as a great deep ball specialist of a quarterback. All right. Not that Courtland Sutton's just a deep ball. He's not, but he's one of those guys that wins 50-50 balls. So that's a good thing for him as well. But I just can't do it right now with Cortland. But I do really like Cortland Sutton. I think he could be an excellent, excellent value at his ADP right now. DJ Chark at wide receiver 23. Look, we all love Trevor Lawrence. This is a team that's going to be losing a lot more than likely. They're going to be throwing a lot. And I know, Urban Meyer criticizing DJ Chark. I don't care. I don't think that's a big deal. DJ Chark added muscle this year, putting on some pounds, so he's no longer the 6'4", 215. Look, he keeps that speed. Okay. I'm fine with it. I think DJ definitely, he obviously has an alpha profile. We do want to see some consistency that we didn't really see as much last year. But with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, a generational talent under center, I think DJ Chark is in for a really good year. And I absolutely have him on the wide receiver 2 spectrum in fantasy. Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 22. He has a wide variance as well. We've seen wide receiver 1 seasons from Cooper Kupp. We could definitely see that from him again. Could see from any of these guys really that are coming up. But I do like this team and I like this offense and I love Matthew Stafford this year and I like Cooper Kupp. But again, the names ahead of him, I just couldn't feel comfortable enough putting him ahead of those guys because I do feel like they're going to spread the ball around pretty evenly this year. And I do think they are going to run the ball a lot with Cam and Darrell in the backfield. So we'll see what happens there. But again, the more of the conservative outlooks for these Rams receivers for me. Now, 21 is one of the guys I'm most excited about this season. Devontae Smith. Absolutely love Devontae Smith. Love everything about him. Everybody's concerned about his size. I get that. If he's a string bean, the Slim Reaper. He's like Kevin Durant playing football. Look, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a problem for opposing defenses. And look, I don't know if he's going to be a problem right off the bat. And he's going to, break down the wall like the Kool-Aid man from week 1, from day 1. But this is a guy who I have said on multiple occasions already, and I'm going to say it again. Devontae Smith is going to be a league winner. He's going to win some people championships toward the end of the year because this Eagles offense, and we'll get to the quarterbacks in the next episode with Jalen Hurts, but this offense is going to throw a lot. This offense is going to be in a lot of shootouts. They're going to be competitive, but they're also going to be losing because the defense is terrible. So they're going to be playing catch up. They're going to be throwing the ball. And with that speed, the mobility of Jalen Hurts, his ability to throw the football downfield with the speed of Jalen Reagor and the speed of Dallas Goedert at tight end and the speed of Devontae Smith, this might actually be the fastest offense in the NFL, in the entire league. I'm looking at you, Kansas City. The Eagles offense may be the fastest offense top to bottom in the entire league this year. So I love Devontae Smith. The only reason I have him at 21 is because I think he probably is going to take sort of like the first half of the season to sort of get acclimated. I don't think a lot of people are going to be really happy with what they get the first 6, 7, 8 weeks. But toward the end of the year, we're going to start seeing it click. Week after week, we're going to see it click. And by the end of the year, week 13, 14, 15, he's going to be winning you football games. Tyler Lockett comes in at wide receiver 20. I know. A lot of people think that, I think a lot of people understand that Tyler Lockett's going to fall off at some point. It could be this year. But he's a quality wide receiver with a quality quarterback, quality deep ball receiver with a quality deep ball quarterback. So there's not a whole lot to dislike about Tyler Lockett, except for the fact that a lot of times, he's a little inconsistent. Falls off toward the end of the year. I've been a Tyler Lockett owner for the last 2 or 3 years in my home league. Yeah, I understand the frustration. I do. Before I drafted DK Metcalf in that same league, Tyler was my wide receiver 1. So I understand the frustration with Lockett sometimes. I think Lockett's going to be a fine play this year. I have him as a wide receiver too. Obviously, he's got a higher ceiling than that. But I think that inconsistency and DK Metcalf continuing to get better and continuing to affirm his role as the alpha on that team, I think drops Tyler Lockett down a little bit this year. T. Higgins, wide receiver 19. I can't get enough of the Bengals offense. I just can't. This offense, this is going to be a competitive football team. They're going to put up a lot of points. They're going to be very competitive. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Much for the same reasons that the Eagles are going to. The defense is probably going to be terrible, and they're probably going to be in shootouts, and they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I want every single piece of the Bengals offense that I can get. Tie me to Joe Burrow in every which way. So I think that T. Higgins at wide receiver 19 might actually be a little conservative, because I think this guy could be inside the top 15 without question. Jamar Chase or not. Terry McLaurin, wide receiver 18. I like Terry McLaurin. I do. Curtis Samuel's there now, though. Antonio Gibson's still there. J.D. McKissick probably expected to be the niche receiving back, a la like a James White. That's all he's going to be doing. Catching footballs. Okay. So Curtis Samuel, I don't think helps Terry McLaurin's Logan Thomas emerging as a rock solid, steady receiving option at tight end. I think that drops Terry McLaurin just a little bit. Obviously, he's an elite route runner, so he's gonna get open in that way quite often. I do think there's going to be this is going to be a team that throws a lot, I do believe, but it's Ryan Fitzmagic, right? And how long until we see Ryan Fitztragic? So I think we have to prepare ourselves with Terry McLaurin that, mid to low wide receiver 2, maybe even high wide receiver 3 could be on the incoming docket for Terry McLaurin this year. Just be careful. Mike Evans, wide receiver 17. I know, seems a little conservative, but I have Chris Godwin at wide receiver 16 right ahead of him. So I think these guys, either which way, are going to be very close to one another. And of course, you've still got Antonio Brown in there, who could easily find his way into the top 30 players here, receivers. So you've got a lot. Rob Gronkowski's there. So look, they're going to spread this ball around just like they did last year, right? They're going to spread it around. And last year, Mike Evans was wide receiver 11. Chris Godwin, wide receiver 31. So I'm actually probably being a little too optimistic on Chris Godwin at wide receiver 16. But I do think that Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they're going to be rock solid wide receivers, rock solid options every single week, as long as Tom Brady's playing good football. As long as they're playing good football. And you got to remember, this is going to be one of the best defenses in the league. So they're going to control the clock a lot. It's not like they're in the Jameis Winston era where the defense sucks and they're going to have to throw the ball all over the place all the time. They don't have to do that. So they can lean on the run with Fournette and Ronald Jones and now Giovanni Bernard a little bit more. So I do think that's going to bring Godwin and Evans down a tick a little bit. But they're still going to be rock solid guys. But again, the guys that I have ahead of them, can you really blame me for putting these guys ahead of them? Because now we're getting into, I think once we hit this wide receiver 15 mark, this is where the rankings, just forget about it. Like they could go any which way. I'm going to give them to you. I'm going to give you my convictions. But don't be surprised if any of these guys in this top 15 here are top 5 wide receivers. Not a single one would I be surprised about. I swear to God, I wouldn't be surprised any of these guys. Wide receiver 15, A.J. Brown. Look, I know some people have him as their dynasty wide receiver 1. I think that's a mistake. I love A.J. Brown, one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. Julio Jones is going to be a problem for his target share. No Arthur Smith. We don't know what to expect. Is the offense even going to be, is the offense as a whole, forget about the passing game, is the offense as a whole going to continue to be as efficient as it has been in the past, the last few years since AJ came? I don't know. But that's not something that I'm comfortable with projecting, so I'm going to adjust accordingly. So I have him as a mid to high wide receiver 2. At best, I don't have A.J. Brown as a wide receiver 1, and I also think it's a mistake to project him to be that this upcoming season. So A.J. Brown, wide receiver 15 for me. Jamar Chase, wide receiver 14. Oh, yeah. Give me some more Bengals, baby. Give me more Joe Burrow. Not only is Jamar Chase going to be the number 1 wide receiver on this team, but you know what else we get to love about Jamar Chase is the fact that he already has a rapport with Joe Burrow. Already got it. He's played with Joe Burrow before. He broke records with Joe Burrow. He won a national championship with Joe Burrow. The chemistry's there. Jamar Chase doesn't have to learn chemistry with Joe Burrow. He doesn't have anything to learn with that going into this offseason. All he's got to learn is the playbook. Learn the playbook. Arguably the best wide receiver in this draft. Learn the playbook. We really think that's going to be a problem? No. Going to learn the playbook. Going to be an immediate impact starter. Going to be the number 1 target on that offense. Has a great rapport and great chemistry with Joe Burrow. Sign me up. Why is wide receiver 14? Any of you scoffing, why is wide receiver 14 so egregious? He could be a top 4 wide receiver by the end of the year. Probably not, but he could be. Are we really going to doubt Joe Burrow's talent? Are we really going to doubt the fact that this team's going to be throwing a lot? Are we really going to doubt the fact that Jamar Chase is going to see a heavy amount of targets? The only reason I don't have him higher is because of Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. And if Joe Mixon stays healthy, Joe Mixon out of the backfield. It's so many options. But I love Joe Burrow this year. I love this Bengals offense, and I love Jamar Chase at wide receiver 14. Allen Robinson, wide receiver 13. I love Allen Robinson, respect the hell out of him. But he is probably going to have a rookie quarterback learning on the fly in a new system. So I don't think that Allen Robinson is going to be a rock solid wide receiver 1 this year. Obviously, he's right on that fence there. I have him right on the fence. So I do think that'll affect him a little bit. But look, even if you draft Allen Robinson as your number 1 wide receiver, I don't think it's a mistake, and I do think you're going to be pretty satisfied with that. So if you're starting your draft like me with 2 to 3 workhorse running backs, and guys like Jamar Chase or Allen Robinson, or even Adam Thielen, who I have as wide receiver 12, end up as your wide receiver 1 in your fantasy team, I don't think you should be upset about that at all. Good for you. You're in a very good position, in my opinion. Adam Thielen, again, wide receiver 12. Can't doubt the guy. He's 29 years old? What are you going to do? Like, the guy just produces. Why are we just going to... Everybody just seems to forget about Adam Thielen just because Justin Jefferson broke out last year. I love Justin Jefferson. I thought Justin Jefferson was a better receiver than Jamar Chase. And I still think that. But Adam Thielen is obviously no slouch. Continuously on that wide receiver 1 spectrum nearly every single year since he broke out. Why am I to think that's going to change this year? Can Kirk Cousins support 2 wide receiver 1s? Absolutely. And I think he will. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 11. You guys already know. Dak's winning MVP, in my opinion. Cowboys are going to win 13, 14 games, maybe more. I had them in the NFC Championship game. As long as they stay healthy, this offense is going to be terrifying. The team, I think, is going to be terrifying as a whole. Improve the defense. I think nearly every pick, maybe every pick in the draft was defense. Can't remember, but a vast majority, if not all, the picks in the draft were on. So, like, this is a team that has a window wide ass open right now. And Amari Cooper is, I think he's got a 4th round ADP right now. That is an absolute steal. I don't see how he's not a wide receiver 1 this year, as long as Dak comes back and does his normal thing. So Amari Cooper, wide receiver 11. Man, if you can get him as your wide receiver 1, you go for it. Absolutely go for it. I think I think this is going to be just a dangerous team. They'll be thrown all over the place. Amari Cooper, wide receiver 11. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 10. Got to be in the top 10. Justin Herbert only getting better. Justin Herbert, great young quarterback. Keenan Allen is a target machine, arguably the best route runner in the entire NFL. Matter of fact, I'd probably put him number 1 in the NFL. And so, I mean, how are you going to argue with that? Keenan Allen, wide receiver 10. As long as he's on the field, we already know what we're going to get from Keenan Allen. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 9. Dallas, Dak. That offense, man. I want every starting piece of it that I can get. Outside of tight end. Not really interested in tight ends. Zeke, CD, Amari, Dak, give them all to me. I want them all. I'll start all 4 of those guys on my fantasy team every week. Every week I'll do it. CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 9. I think we all expect him to take that next step in this offense this year. So, I mean, this is it for him. Finished wide receiver 24 last year without Dak. Sky's the limit for him this year. Now, you could him and Amari to me are like interchangeable. Put them wherever you want. I don't care. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 8. I mean, the alpha receiver for the Seahawks, for Russell Wilson, go-to. He does it all. He just keeps getting better, man, and he is absolutely dominant. He's virtually unstoppable. There's not many corners in the league that can stop him. Maybe only Jalen Ramsey. I mean, I just on a consistent basis at least. And he stays healthy. He's not hurt. Like DK is an animal, and I mean he could easily finish as the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy. Any of these guys could. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 7. Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 6. He should still be up there. They lost John Brown. Cole Beasley still there. Gabriel Davis, everybody's expecting him to take the next step. We'll see about that. We'll see if they get Zach Ertz. I'd probably bump Diggs down a little bit if they get Ertz, because Ertz is going to be he's a good tight end, but he's not one of those flashy tight ends. But he's one of those Jason Witten sort of Kyle Rudolph class. Like, not flashy, nothing spectacular about him, but man, solid hands. He's going to move the chains. I think a guy like that would look great with Josh Allen in Buffalo. But I think that if that were to happen, probably knock him down a couple ticks. But until it does, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 5 for Michael Thomas. I think Michael Thomas is going to have a sort of a comeback year, if you will. And obviously last year, he did not have, the year that we all had hoped. He got hurt. He only played 7 games. No receiving touchdowns at all. No touchdowns, period. So I think we're going to see a reincarnated Michael Thomas. Now, I do think a lot of this is going to hinge on whether Taysom Hill is the quarterback. Because if Taysom Hill is the quarterback, that's not going to be a good thing. They paid him a lot of money, so this is a dicey situation. If Jameis is the quarterback, that's a good thing for Thomas because he is going to target his number 1 guy. There's nobody else on that offense in that receiving room that is going to command even close to the amount of targets that Michael Thomas is. A lot of us are expecting Adam Troutman to break out. I'm kind of on the fence with that, but he's not going to be a big problem for Michael Thomas, in my opinion. So I think Michael Thomas, health permitting, we're going to see him back in the rock-solid wide receiver 1 tier there. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 4. I don't really need to say much about this, right? I just don't. Okay, we saw what he did last year. We've seen him continue to develop. One of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. And I think that the sky's the limit for him. He could easily finish the season as the number 1 wide receiver. Yeah, we love Kyle Pitts. Okay, we don't slander Kyle Pitts here on the Roto Bros. No matter what my partner Mark would tell you. Kyle Pitts is going to be a force, but so is Calvin Ridley. And with Arthur Smith calling the shots now, saw what he did with A.J. Brown, didn't we? Oh, I'm just saying. Calvin Ridley's in for a great season. Top flight wide receiver 1 for 2021 for Calvin Ridley. Tyreek Hill, number 3. Devontae Adams, number 2. And DeAndre Hopkins, number 1. Can you really argue with the top 5 like all that? But like I said, look, the top 15, A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Michael Thomas, Calvin Ridley, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins. Any of those guys could finish wide receiver 1. Right? Like, it's crazy. So, again, there were, as you were listening to this show, like, yeah, there were probably some, oh my God, I can't believe he's not ranked. Oh my God, I can't believe he hasn't ranked there. You got to remember, right now, all these guys are healthy. Okay? All these guys are healthy. So I can't have, Cooper Kupp as wide receiver 9 when all these guys are healthy. He could absolutely end up as wide receiver 9. But that doesn't mean that the logic that I'm giving you here for where these guys are as of today healthy, all projected to play this season, that doesn't mean that that's wrong. You just have to account. This is going to happen. They are going to change. They're going to get jumbled up. There's probably going to be a guy I don't even have in the top 30 that's in the top 15. Happens all the time. There's going to be some surprises. Chase Claypool could finish as wide receiver 8 and surprise us all. Like, we don't know. Okay? But I'm based on where these guys are, the situations they're in, the systems that they're in, what we can expect from their surroundings. I'm giving you these rankings based on projected finish, assuming they were all healthy. Okay? So there's the wide receivers for me this year. Now, of course, this may not be the final, this is probably going to change a little bit. Guys are going to get hurt in training camp in a couple weeks, and things are going to change. Trades could be made. Aaron Rodgers on the move. Deshaun Watson may be on the move if he even plays this year. That's going to change the outlook for a lot of these guys because some of these guys, their fantasy value hinges on that. So you got to also keep that in mind. But feel free to let me know what you did like, what you didn't like, and any guys that I didn't talk about tonight in the top 30 of my rankings here at wide receiver. Feel free to ask me, tweet at me, find me on the Bluebird at Wizard of Roto. But the best place to find me, guys, is the greatest hidden gem in all of fantasy sports, and that is the Roto Bros Fantasy Lounge. Patreon.com/Roto Bros. Got a silver tier, got a gold tier. Choose your tier. Both of them get you into the Fantasy Lounge. The gold tier gets you some extras, so check that out as well. We cover everything in the Fantasy Lounge. Season-long football, basketball, baseball, DFS, betting, investments. We talk investments. We have a chat just for beer and regular normal chat. We have a Game of Thrones chat that we've got some people in right now because they're watching the show for the first time, and I am trying to go on this journey with them. I've seen it, but some of them have not. So we're going on this journey together, and I'm really excited to see the reactions of some people. But we have a channel for everything. We have something for everybody in regards to fantasy sports. So please check that out. Go to patreon.com/RotoBros and join today. I do want to say, if I had to choose one wide receiver to have the most shares of this season, just one of my favorite wide receivers to own this season, Devontae Smith. I repeat again, Devontae Smith, league winner in 2021.
Thanks for listening.
And don't forget to join the Roto Bros Fantasy Advice Lounge on Discord by going to patreon.com/RotoBros. Signal lost.